Can you confirm that you can all see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, judging from what we did last week, we talked about the concept of talked about a React hook called useState, and we declared it as this, right? Const array syntax brackets state, right? Set state equals useState. Right, so we did this, and then we're able to understand what this variable speaks to, what it means, and what this function that comes with this, what it does. Right, so Damilola and Bashir have given us a proper brief of what we did. So let me open up our what's it called? Our slide. So we have So the next thing we are going to be moving on to is events, right? Handling events in JavaScript and in React rather. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
All right, so who can tell me what an event is?
An event?
Yeah, event in JavaScript, events in JavaScript. Can anyone tell me what an event is?
When an action occurred.
Exactly, that's perfect. That's a very perfect answer. When an action occurs, right? That is exactly what an event is. So we would take into consideration a number of actions that can occur when you are interacting with your application, be it a web app or a mobile app. What are the type of actions that can occur I'm asking a question now. What are the type of actions that can occur when you're using an application?
When you're trying to navigate from one component to the other.
Navigating from one page to the other, or one component to the other. That is an event, but would we say navigating is not exactly an event or an action, right?
Okay.
When you click on a button, that's an action.
Okay.
Right? Navigating to another page is the result of that action. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
When you hover on a particular component or a particular element, that's an action. When you type into an input, that's an action, right? So we are going to be looking at some set of events in and how to handle them, right? So we know we can definitely create a form of our own, right? With let's say we try to create a form of, let's say we try to create inside our JS now. Are we together? We are still using our app.js. We try to create a form like this. We use the form tag, right? And then you can say label HTML for first name. Label first name. And then we make our inputs. That's our input tag. What type of text? What type of input? You want it to be a text input. And what other attributes does an input take in? Anyone? You learned this from your HTML class. What other attributes does an input take in? Okay, so as a refresher, in case you don't remember, the other attributes an input takes in, an input tag takes in is the ID, right? It takes in an ID. We can call this ID first
Class name.
Right? It takes in another attribute called name, meaning the name of the input, first name, right? It takes in a placeholder, right? Enter first name. You know what a placeholder is, right? Enter first name. In case you don't know what a placeholder is, it is basically, as the name implies, it holds the space for where you want to type. It holds that place. It holds it for when you want to actually type your text, and you would see it in a minute. Enter first name, right? You can give your input a class name, right? So, like I said, with JSX, instead of in your HTML and CSS, you're used to your tags having class, right? You want to give it a particular class. You type the attribute of class and you enter the class, you enter the name of the class. But in React or JSX, you have to use class name, right? So you say class name, let's give it name inputs, right? So if I save this right here, if I come here and save this, I would come to, what's it called? I can come to my React app, and I should be able to see my label and my input, right? So let's say I want to put this in so this is what we currently have, right? Have I misplaced anyone with what I've just imputed in my code now?
No, sir. Nothing.
All right, good. So if we want to look at, like I said, we are looking at events, right? So what type of what's it called? When I type into this input, right? When I type into this input, I can see that what I'm typing in is entering the input, obviously. And if I remove everything from this input, I can see my placeholder right here as enter first name, which is what I have saved it to be from my React code right here, right? So if I decide to say, but the problem is, I need to be able to get the information from this input, right? I need to be able to get what I'm typing from this input. Let's say I even want to use it somewhere else in my code. I want to, like we did last week, where we typed into a particular input and then we got it and we used it to replace the text that we had in another component, right? Let's say I even want to do that. How do I actually access what is happening inside this input? We would now go back, come to this input, and then type in the onChange event. OnChange, right? So how do you even start with, how do you know how to type in an event? You type it in as a regular attribute, right? You know how attributes are attached to tags. You type it in as a regular attribute and you say on, right? You see that these are the various elements, these are the various events that we have on abort, on abort capture, on animation end capture, down to several other captions, several other events that you have. So there are a whole lot of events that you can use, and I would very much appreciate and implore you guys to try it out on your own, see what happens, read about these individual events, the ones that we don't talk about in class, read about them, see what they can do, so that you know that, so that you have a wider understanding of what this of what several events can do and how you can implement them. So, but for inputs, the major event that an input will take is onChange, right? Basically, it means that when the instance or when the context of that input changes, what do you want to happen? So it takes in a callback function, right? And if you remember from what we said last week, a callback function is a function that you pass into another function as a parameter, right?
Yes.
Are we still together on that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So your callback function takes E as a parameter of its own, right? So I can decide to say console.log E, which is the event itself, dot target, right? Dot value. What this does is that it basically logs whatever I type into this input, it logs it to my console, right? So that is one event onChange, which is usually used for inputs. Are we together?
Yes.
We would usually use onChange for inputs. Maybe either be it a text area, a checklist, a checkbox, a radio button, whatever, you'd always use onChange for it, right? So let's look at another type of event, right? Let's say instead of logging the targets.value to the console, what do I want to do? I want to set states, right? Let me change this to another name so it doesn't confuse you guys. Minutes. Fruits. Sets fruits, right? So what I'll do is I'll set fruits to e.targets.value. What I've basically done is I have I am saying whatever it is I type into my input should be set to this fruit variable. That's all I've done, right? So now, the next thing for me to do is I want to look at another type of event. So let's say for some reason I have a list somewhere here. I have a list like this, and I impute fruit as my first value, right? Obviously, nothing is going to be here. So I can say, I can come here and say, because we have this implementation like this, but the problem is we have this decimal point here showing when we've not imputed anything. All right, if I come here and say apple, for instance, that is when this will start to show, right? But if I remove all of this, this decimal point or this list style is still here, which should not be so. So I can come here and say, write an expression that says, did you guys learn how to write ternary operators? Or
No, sir.
statement. Did you guys learn how to write if statements?
If statements.
Yes, in JavaScript.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. So with if statements, your regular if statement is written as does. If you write your condition, if 1 is greater than 2, right? Console log something, right?
Yes.
So obviously this will not happen because 1 is not greater than 2. Let's say if 1 is less than 2, for example, now console.log first, right? So we would see first in our console, right? So that's how you write a conditional statement. But now you can write it there's another way you can write conditional statements. We use ternary operators, right? It's like writing if statements with shorthand, right? So if I was going to do this now, this is the syntax for it, right? I write my condition first, right? And then using this question mark symbol, that will represent the then. And then I write the expression I want to happen if my condition is met. I can say console.log first, which basically represents the action I want to take place if the condition is met. And if my condition is not met, else, which this colon is representing, I would say I want this to happen instead. Console.log second, right? So if I save this, and I come down here, so let me comment this out and actually write this the way it's meant to be. So I can say if 1 is less than 2, then console.log CLG 1 is the answer. This expression is still missing something. What is that? This expression on line 13 is still missing something. What is that thing is missing?
Else, the other condition.
The else statements, right? So I can say else. How would I represent my else?
Column. Is that column?
Yeah,
That 2 dots.
Sorry, I represent it with a column, right? And then I can see console.log two is the answer, right? And if I go to my console, I would see 1 is the answer. Basically, what I've written is I've turned this long if statement to just 1 line, right? So it is basically a way of writing if statement, and ternary operators are even much better because it gives you, it is a lot more concise and it allows you write if statement inside your JSX, right? It helps you to, because if I come here and say if I'm trying to write an if statement like this, if I'm trying to write an if statement like this, it will not work because
Okay.
I'm inside a ternary operator, right? So instead of that, what I can do is I'll write it like this, right? I'll write it in this manner. So for this condition now, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to not render anything, not render any list item if fruit does not exist, right? That's what I'm trying to do. So I can say if fruit being a string, or if fruit is equal to undefined, right?
Okay.
Or rather, sorry, if fruit is not equal to undefined, then I want to render this li, right? I want to render this li, else render null. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
Does
Null
this
is not null is nothing, right?
null is nothing, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so if I come back here and I reload, I get this.
Yeah.
So if I type in apple, it becomes,
Obvious.
shows up, right?
Yes.
You understand? So I can say if fruit is equal to undefined, right? But then this doesn't exactly solve our problem, because now there's nothing, if you clear all of, there's nothing in my input, right? There's nothing in my input, and this guy is still showing, right? So I can say if fruit is not equal to undefined, I can chain another condition here and say, or fruit dot length, right? Because dot length is a property on a string data type. Dot length is equal to, if dot length is greater than 0, right? What that basically means is that if my fruit string has more than one, has at least one character, I want to show my li, right? So that would mean is, what that would mean is I reload. What's that meaning? Let's say fruit. So if I save it like this, right, I run into an error first hand, right? And
Yes.
it cannot read properties of undefined reading length, right? So what that means is that because on this when we initialize this use state, we didn't give it a default value.
Yes.
That means it is undefined.
Yes.
Right? So if we come here and say we give it the default value of an empty string, right? And we save this code and we reload. Let's reload. That solves our problem, right? It clears the error.
Okay.
So I can come here and then say, if I can now redo this entire statement from here. So I can say if fruit is not equal to empty string, meaning that when fruit is not equal to an empty string, I want to render what fruit is, else render null. So if I come here and reload, I would see that there is nothing that is being rendered until I type in apple, right? And if I come here and delete everything, I would see that the list item disappears completely. Are we there?
Yes,
So
sir.
that is, so we've learned a couple of things now. We've learned ternary operators. We've learned what's it called? How to write conditions with ternary operators. We've learned how to use a particular event, which is on change, right? So what if I don't want to set, sorry, give me a minute. What if I don't want to give me a minute. What if I don't want it to be like once I type in this information here, I don't want it to show here automatically until I click a particular button, right? Until I submit my form, right? So let me not say submit my form, because there is another that is another thing entirely. Let's say I have a button outside my form, right? A button outside my form like this. That that says save to list, right? This is what I have. I've not misplaced anybody, right? So if I have this button here, what I want to do is, once I type in here, I want to click on save to list, then it is added to this list. Then this list is being rendered. Are we there? So that's the problem that I have. But for now, the way things are implemented, I am still typing here and it is still showing in my list. So what do I do? First things first, I want to, who can anyone give me an insight as to what I would do? First things first, I don't want it to be that as I'm typing here, it is showing down here. I don't want that to happen, right? So what's the first, with what you currently know, what's the first thing you would do? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Like, you don't want it to show, rather you want it to.
I don't want this name to show here as I am typing.
Yeah.
As I am typing, I don't want it to show here. So what's the first thing you would do as from what you currently know? What's the first thing?
I'll comment out the function that is rendering it.
Which is on which line?
Which is fruits dot targets fruits.
Yeah. Is that what you're saying
Yes.
on line 27? You comment it out. Right.
Yes.
So when you comment it out and you reload, no matter how many times you type, it doesn't render.
Yes.
That's fine. Now, I can decide to create another state that says, let me call that state saved fruit, right? And I'll say set saved fruit to this string. So what I can now say is, while I'm here, there are different ways to go about this particular problem. I can decide to say set fruit. Let me uncomment this guy, right? Uncomment this guy, which basically still gives us the same thing, but not if I remove this and put saved fruit instead. Right? So I've changed what is being rendered to saved fruit instead of the fruit variable. Are we together? So even you type in here 1,000 times, it would not show. Do you understand what it is that?
Yes.
You understand what, Damilola, are you still following me? You understand what it is that I have done?
I think I'm the only one inside the class, so.
Oh, you're the only one in the class?
I think so.
But you're understanding what I'm doing, right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So, the next thing for us to do would now be, let me use this button right? Because the concept is I want to type in here, I want to type quadri, right? And then save to list. And then it shows up here as the event, or the it shows up here as the list item that I have added to this list, right?
Yes.
I can invoke a particular event on this button called on click, right? I
Yes.
invoke a particular button on, and it takes in what? A callback function, just like on-chain does, right?
Okay.
It does that. And I can come here and define my function that says const add to list, right? Equal
Okay.
this, right? Do you understand this function? This is what type of function?
That arrow function. But sir, the arrow function looks exactly like that event function.
This event function, because the event function is an arrow function too,
Okay, okay,
because it is still a function, right?
okay, okay.
So I can decide to not write this event function like this. I can decide to have written it in this manner. Function this and then this, right? I could have written it in this manner,
Okay.
right? Taking a parameter of e. I could have written it in this manner, but no. It's just easier to
Yes,
more
yes.
straightforward to write it like this, right?
Okay.
So I can say add to list. So what would I do when I'm trying to add this information to list now?
You give it a parameter.
Since I am rendering saved fruits, right? And I have fruit as e.target. I have fruit as what I'm typing in here, right? So if I'm trying to add to list now, I can say set saved fruits. Are you with me?
Yes.
I'll set saved fruits to what? What would I set it to?
E.target.value.
But it cannot be e.target. E.target.value is on this, is only available to this input, right?
Okay, okay.
Well,
Okay.
I've exported what this e.target.value is. I've sent it to this variable of fruit.
Okay.
In my code now, what fruit is whatever e.target.value is.
Okay.
So now I'm not trying to save to list, right? So I can say set saved fruit to what?
You give it a prop.
I don't need to give it. I only give component props. I cannot give a function a prop. I can give a function a parameter, but not a prop.
Okay.
So you're almost there. You're almost there. I would say set saved fruits to fruits, right?
Okay.
Because this fruit already represents e.target.value, right? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
From this line, I've basically said, I want my label for first name, I want my input, and when my input changes, I want to set fruits to e.target.value. Basically, what that means is that I want to set whatever it is I type in my fruit input, I want to set it to this variable here.
Okay.
Meaning, in my code from line 5 to line 37, within that scope, whatever I type in e.target.value, whatever I type into this input is represented as fruit. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
So if I now say set saved fruits to fruit, it means that I am now transferring that fruit value to saved fruit. So both fruit and saved fruit are now e.target.value. But this saved fruit would only be e.target.value after this function has been called. Are we? So now I will now come and invoke my onClick function in this button, and say add to list. This is where I will now call my function. Basically, What that means is that whenever I click on this button, this to list function would fire, and then set saved fruit will happen, right? So I can decide to give this a conditional statement and say if fruit is equal to an empty string, then alert please insert a value, right? And then return. So what this does is that it first checks for whether there is actually a value in your input. If there is no value in your input, it does this and it breaks the entire flow. It doesn't call this last function to set fruit. Are we there?
All right, sir.
So I can come to my code now and reload. If I try to save to list, I get this prompt that says, please insert a value, right?
Yes.
But if I come here and say, type in quadri, and I save to list, I can see that quadri is added to my list of names, right?
Okay, yes.
So we understand what it is that I have done. So now we've learned of another event, which is the onClick event. And then we have this one to be the onChange event. So now, in a situation where I have an array, right? I want to build on what this flow is doing, right? I want to be able to, because if I come here and type another name, for example, and say Bashir, for example, and I save to list, it changes what I have here, right?
Okay. Yes.
It changes what I have here. It doesn't exactly add to this list. It doesn't exactly add to this list. It just changes what I have on this implementation here. So now, I want to ask you a question. When you were learning JavaScript, right?
Yes.
Did you learn about the data type of array?
Yes, but I don't know it deeply. I don't really know. I just know just how it's been and the notation and that the indexes.
So you basically understand what an array is. As per it can be, it is a combination of several other data types in one data type, right?
Yes,
So you
yes.
can say const array equals this, a square bracket. You can say the first element in this array is quadri. The second element in this array is a number of 1. The last element in the array is a boolean of true, right? So this is what an array is. And you can access each value or each element of this array by their index, right?
Yes.
But I can say clg console.log array at the index of 0, which gives me what value?
Quadri.
Good. If I say at the index of 3, what does it give me?
None.
Exactly, because there's nothing at the index of 3. It gives me undefined, right? So that's perfect. Knowing this now, let's not try to create an array of our own, right? An array of our own list. So we can say const fruits, right, equals this array. We want it to be an array of strings that apple, banana, guava, right, berry. So now we've declared a new variable of fruit that is an array. So now, ignore everything that you have up here for now. Let me comment it out. Let me comment what I have here for now. Let's not pay attention to this. Let's pay attention to the list that we have down here, right? So what I want to do is, normally, if I have several items like this, and I want to render every single one of these items, right? I want to render every single one of these items. What I'll have to do is I'll have to look through this array to render this item. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so let me go back a little bit. Let's say I want to log all of these items, all of these fruit items, right, in my array, in my console.
Okay.
So let's say I want to do console.log. I would say fruits at index of 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can say
Yeah.
fruit index of 1, fruit at
Mm.
index of 2, and fruit at index of 3, which is apple, banana, guava, and berry, right? If I save this, this is what I'll have in my console. You understand?
Yeah. Mm.
But this is an expensive way of doing things. Is not the most advisable way to do this, because I am repeating myself. And there is one general rule when it comes to programming. We call it the dry rule, which basically stands for DRY, which basically stands for don't repeat yourself, right? So if I was going to find a way to do this without repeating myself, let this comment on line 23 be like a checker for you. So that's how you know that you're not writing the most optimized code. When you find yourself repeating the same thing or repeating yourself in multiple places, that's how you would know that, okay, maybe I can find a better way to write this. So now, if I was going to look for a better way to write this, all I have to do is I have to look into arrays. Arrays, as they come naturally, they come with some methods attached to them as a data type, right? And so I can say, first of all, before I even go to the methods that come with the array data type, you understand what it is, what it means to loop through something, to loop an action. Do you understand what it means to loop an action in JavaScript programming?
I've been hearing it, but I don't know anything about looping. But I know it's used to solve repetitive action.
Exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. Loop is used to solve repetitive actions. And would you agree with me when I say console logging each element in this array is a repetitive action? Would you agree with me when I say that?
100%.
Good. So now what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to loop through this array in order to console.log, in order to log each of the elements in the array. So what I would do is there are several types of loop, right? There are several types of loops. There are what's it called? We have the for loop, we have the while loop, we have the do while loop, right? We have the for off loop, right? But I wouldn't be going into all of those deeply because that would take a whole lot of our time. I will not be able to learn what we're supposed to learn, right? So, but let's look at the for loop, for example, right? The for loop. It has a very, very interesting syntax, right? But before we look at the for loop, let me start with something simple first. Let's look at the while loop. We have this as your while statement, right?
Okay.
If you look at this while statement here, doesn't it remind you of an if statement?
Yes, because of the condition.
Because of the condition, and it's exactly the same syntax, right?
Yes.
The only thing that's changing is putting while here instead of if.
Yes.
Exactly. So now what that means is that you state your condition, meaning I want to say while what's it called? While let me first initialize a counter, right? I can say let I, where's my I, equals to 0. Equals to 0. So I can say while I, right, is less than fruits, is less than, what's it called? Fruits dot length. What does this mean? While I is less than the, what's it called? The number of elements in this array, which is what fruits.length would give us.
Okay.
You get, if you console.log fruit.length, you will get 1, 2, 3, 4. You get 4 as your value. Are you with me?
Okay. Yes.
So while I is less than fruits.length, I want to console.log fruits, right, at the index of I. Right? So if I save this guy, what would I get in my console? Apple,
Nothing.
banana, guava,
Oh,
berry.
yeah, 0.
So instead of writing all of that console.log 4 times, I can write this statement to basically give me that same result. Right? And what does this statement mean? While I is less than fruit.length, meaning this condition would continue, this line 21 would continue to run while this condition is met. Right? So, oh, my bad. I can now say I'm supposed to add something. I'm supposed to add I++ or increase the value of I by 1. Right? So this is the same thing as writing. So let me explain what I have here. I say while I, this I that is here, this I that sets to 0, while it is less than the fruits.length, which is while it is less than the number of elements in this array, I want to console.log fruits at the index of I, right? And after I've console.logged this, I want to set I, this same I want to add 1 to the value of I. Are you with me? So what that basically means is that this action on line 21 and 22 would continue to run, would keep running while this condition is met. Meaning it will come here, let's say my code is reading from top, it will get to line 20. Okay, it sees a while statement, and it says, while I is less than fruits.length, right? Console.log this at the index of I is currently what, 0. Right? So obviously console.log fruits at the index of what, 0. It's Apple, right? And then after this line 21, it comes to line 22. It says I equals I plus 1, meaning it makes I 1 now. Right? So it gets to line 23. It says that, okay, this is still a while statement. It goes back to line 20. Right? My I is currently 1. Is 1 less than the fruits.length, which is what, 4? Is 1 less than 4? Yes. System action again. At the end of line 22, I becomes 2. Are we there?
Yes.
It comes here again to check, is I less than the fruits.length, which is what, 4? Okay, fine. It is 2 is less than 4. It runs this function again. It logs this to the console, right? Then it comes here again. So that's basically, it does the same thing over and over and over again while this condition is still being met. The minute I becomes 4, or the minute I becomes 4, I is no longer less than the length. This function will not run again.
Okay.
Are we together? So let's see what happens now. If I save this guy and I come to my Give me a minute. Let me close this guy. Come to my console. This is what I have in my console, right? Apple, banana, guava, berry, right? So you understand the concept of loops now, right? So this, instead of writing this for an array, right? If you are going to loop through, if you want to have repetitive actions somewhere in your code, you can do that with your regular loop statements, right? You can either use the while loop, for loop, whatever. But arrays, they come natural, they are special, right? They come naturally with their own method to loop through them, right? They come naturally with their own method to loop through them. So if I want to loop through this array, for example, now, I would say fruits, I'll call the array itself dot for each, right? And we call this sets of methods I order array methods, right? So they are methods that basically take in callback functions to execute. Give me a minute, trying to plug in my system. So you are still following me on this, right?
Yes, sir.
Good. So what I'm saying is that we have the for each method, which comes directly, or it comes readily prepared from JavaScript itself, right? It comes with arrays, right? So all I have to do is I have to pass in a callback function. Remind me again what a callback function is, Bashir.
Const.
No, what is a callback function again? Like the principles of a callback function. What do you understand by a callback function?
It calls back the
callback function. I've said this thing twice today in this class. A callback function is a function that you would pass. It's basically another function. A callback function is simply another function. It's like this. I can say this, I can call this function callback, right? Equals, I can declare a new function that says callback, right? And what would actually make this function a callback? What will actually make this function a callback function is when I pass it into this another function as a parameter. Are you together? So that's what makes it a callback. I can name this whatever function I want to name. I can name this looper, right? Looper is not yet a callback function because it is just me declaring a regular function, right? Line 18 to line 20 is just me declaring a regular function. But the minute I pass looper into this method as a parameter, looper becomes a callback function. Are we there?
Please take it again, sir. I
said, right now, you understand what it is I have done on line 18 to 20. I have basically declared a regular function. I've not done anything to it. It's just a regular function. This looper can be a function to loop things anywhere. But the moment I decide to pass looper into another function as a parameter, it becomes a callback function. And we all know that this for each is a function, right? It's a function. So the moment I pass in looper into this function, it becomes a callback function. Looper becomes a callback function.
Okay, sir.
Do you understand it better now?
Yes. Good. But the looper, the looper is a function, yes. Then we are passing it as a parameter into another function.
Yes. So that makes it what?
A callback function.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So that's basically what I'm trying to. That's what a callback function is. So now, whenever it is that you are passing callback functions into I order array methods, listen to me carefully. Whenever you're passing a callback function into I other array methods, would you agree with me that I can write this same expression like this? Would you agree with me?
Yes, because it has already become a function.
It's basically a function, right? I can write this like this. I don't exactly need to declare the function up here first before I can just write a nameless arrow function in this for each, which is still a callback function. Are we there?
Sir.
Do you want me to come again?
Yes, sir, please.
So, you know how I said you can basically this is a simple syntax for what? Declaring or for writing an arrow function. Are you there?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So when you're passing in callback functions into any function at all, right? It is not necessary or it is not compulsory that you give them a name. Are you there?
Okay.
It's not
Okay,
necessary
yes.
for you to first declare it like this and say const looper, right, equals this guy. It's not necessary. It's not important.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you can declare a nameless function like this, you can just come here and declare your nameless arrow function. You have still written the same thing as what we just removed. You have still written the same thing as saying looper. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, okay.
So now, if I come here and so we are together on line 20 now, have you?
Yes.
Good. So this function, this callback function in here, it can take in up to 3 parameters of its own. What I'm saying is your for each takes in a function as a parameter, which is a callback function, right? That callback function that is being passed as a parameter can now take in parameters of its own because what? It is a function regardless. It can take in parameters of its own and it can take in up to 3 parameters, right? So
yes,
those 3 parameters, the first one, you can name it anything. In fact, you can name all the 3 parameters anything you want, right? So the first one out of the 3 parameters can be elements or, right? You can name it element. And what this element refers to is, it refers to an instance of each element in the array, right? You know, the concept, the main purpose of this for each is to loop through this array, this not line 17 array. So what element is standing for is on each instance of the looping, element will represent each element in the array, right? So the second parameter is the index, right? The index of each element in the array. So what that would mean is that, and the third parameter represents the array of fruits itself, the array that you're looping through with this for each method. Are we together? So if I come here and say console.log elements, I come here and say console.log elements, right? Comma at the index of I, at the index of I, comma, array, right? So if I save this to my console and I come here, what I would get is apple at the index of 0, this is the array itself. Banana at the index of 1, this is the array itself. Guava at the index of 2, the array, and berry at the index of 3, the array. Does that make sense to you? Do you understand what this element, index, and array stand for now?
Yes, but no. According to the console log, it shows the same answer or true.
Does it really show the same answer or true? Look at it. Element is the first thing that we have.
Mm.
Elements. If you
Mhm.
look at the first one, element is apple. If you look at the second one, element is banana. The third one, element is guava. And the fourth one, element is berry.
Okay, yes. I was looking at the other side.
So if I come here and say, I said the array represents the array through which you are looping through, right? Obviously, they will have the same answer for the array because you're looping through the same array. Do you get what I'm saying? So if I come here and say, okay, fine, let me clear out all of these guys and just console.log elements, what I would have is apple, banana, guava, and berry. Are we there?
Yes.
Good. So moving on, we can now say we've learned how to, you understand the concept of looping through an array with the for each method, right?
Yes.
So now I want to introduce you to another array method, another order array method called mapping, right? It's called
Mapping.
is the dot map method, right? So instead of saying fruits dot for each, I can say fruits dot map, right? If I say fruits dot map and I reload my page, let me clear this guy out. I reload my page, I get the same thing, right? So basically, I want you to understand that the for each method and the map method, they are exactly the same thing, right? But they have one difference. Are you with me?
Yes.
The method and the map method are exactly the same thing, but they have just one difference. That difference is that with for each method, you can modify the original array, right? So let's assume that, let's say instead of this being an array of strings, let's make it an array of numbers. 2, 3, 4, right? If I come here and say console.log fruits after, and I'm using for each, right? So I don't want to log it to my console now. I want to say, what should happen when you loop through these guys? I want element plus 1, meaning I want to add 1, the value of 1 to each element in my array. Are you with me? That's what I want to have. I don't want to log the element to my console anymore. I want to make sure that when the loop is happening on each iteration of the loop, I want elements to be added to 1. I want 1 to be added to the element. Do you get me? So if I save this guy now, so an expression. So say elements equals elements plus 1. This is what I should have written. Are you with me? Element equals elements plus 1. So I save this guy and I see that let's start with JS1, JS23. So if I do this instead, elements plus plus, what do I get? 1, 2, 3, 4 still. is strange. Undefined, yes, as expected. Give me a minute. What if I say const fruits.map then? What happens? It's quite strange. All right, let's give me a minute to understand what is going on here. When you use for each, it iterates and interacts with the parent array itself, right? This fruit array. If I say for each element plus if I want to add another value to element, meaning on each iteration of the array, I want to add a value to this array. I want to add 2 to each element of this array, meaning on the first iteration, 2 is going to be added to 1, which makes it 3. On the second iteration, 2 is going to be added to 2, which makes it 4. On the third iteration, 2 is going to be added to 3, which makes it 5. And on the fourth one, 2 is going to be added to 4, which makes it 6, right? That is what is meant to happen. And it automatically changes the array itself, right? So let's say, let me see if this works then. This still does not work. Oh. Okay, I would revisit this later. I don't know. I can't understand what is actually going on about. I'll revisit this later. So the concept of what I was trying to explain is that the bottom line of what I was trying to explain is that for each doesn't return anything. Like it doesn't return a value back to you. You understand what it means for a function to return a value? Do you understand what it means for a function to return a value?
Yes.
All right, so and we already know that the for each is a function of its own, right or wrong?
Right. Doesn't return.
It doesn't return
value.
But the map function now, you know, I said map and for each are basically the same thing.
Yes.
Right? So the map function returns to you a value, while the for each function doesn't return to you a value.
Okay.
And to completely understand that, if I come here and say console.log fruits for each element plus command X, and I decide to log the entire expression here, right? I decided to log the entire expression here. I save this, and I'm going to get undefined in my code. Let me reload. I'm going to get undefined. Are you there? Because it doesn't return anything, right?
Yes,
but the moment I say fruits.forEach, instead of using for each, I use map, right?
Okay. Okay.
I save this guy. I am going to get undefined still. Why am I getting undefined? Let's say element equals element plus 1. How am I getting undefined, for goodness sake? Like there's something I'm doing wrong. I wasn't adding the return keyword. That was what was happening.
Okay.
So because the fruits.map returns, what's it called? A value back to me. If I decide to say return element plus 2, for example, it would return this array of 3, 4, 5, 6. Right. So you can see that you can definitely see that your array.map returns a value, while your array.reach doesn't. Even if I change this here and say for each, this should still return undefined. Are we there?
Yes.
So we understand the difference now.
Yes, sir.
So good. So let's now, you understand, let's now go back to the genesis of what brought us into this conversation in the first place, which was how I have, what's it called? An array of fruits that I want to list in my GSX. Are you with me?
Yes.
So obviously I know that if I run through this array and I try to look through it with the for each method, it won't return anything. Are you with me? For me, it won't return anything for me to list. It won't return anything I can use as a value to render, right? So instead, what I can do is I can come here and say fruits dot map, right? I map
Right.
fruits. It takes in the map function takes in what parameter?
Parameter of fruits.
It takes in a callback function. You said this already enough. It takes in a callback function, and that callback function takes in a parameter of fruits and index, right? Takes in a callback parameter of fruits and index. And inside this expression, mind you, if I'm returning a JSX, I don't use curly braces. If I'm returning a JSX, I should not use curly braces. I should use a regular parenthesis, right? And I'll say li. So there's a difference. I think things that you should learn now. If you are returning a JSX from a map or from any function or from any function whatsoever, if you are returning a JSX, you don't use curly braces to represent your execution code. You use a regular parenthesis to represent your return, right? Which is what you would notice in this place, because here we are returning a bigger JSX, which is our entire application, and you are seeing the regular parentheses, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you are doing the same thing, you are returning. So what this basically means is that what this expression, this large expression I've written, what it basically means is that I am writing this like this: return li. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So I can now say return fruits. And for me to do this, if I save this guy here, I am going to get a list of all the fruits in my page, not in my console anymore. It is now in my page. Now, if you look at your console, you will see a warning that says each child in a list should have a unique key prop.
Yes.
Are you with me? It should have
Yes,
a
sir.
key prop. So
Unique key prop.
that means if I come to this li, it means I have to pass in a key attribute into it. And that has to be a unique value. And you would agree with me when I say that in this array now, what makes each element in this array unique is their index. Would you agree with me?
Yes, I do.
Good. So you pass in index as their key. And when you save and you reload, you realize that error has cleared. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Good. So now you understand how to map through an array to render information in your page, right or wrong?
Right.
Do you want to try it by yourself?
I like to watch and listen, so I will try later, sir.
Okay,
So I can really concentrate.
That's fine. So with this being said, you can now go back and say you want to the concept of having what we initially started with, which is this form that helps us to add fruits to the list. Are you with me? So let's change this label to fruits, right? And we say, okay, fine, enter fruit's name, right? When you enter fruit's name, you save to list. So what we are saying is that we want to be able to type in apple, right? Save to list, and it adds to this list. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So first things first, we would see that we need to battle two things. We need to get the value from this input itself. We need to get what we are typing into this input itself, which is what we are setting to a state of fruit here, right? Which is here. Good. Now, I have my add to list function here. All I have to do is take this add to list function and bring it down here, because JavaScript runs your code from top to bottom, right? And I want to make use of, in fact, let me just take it back up so you understand what it is that I'm saying. So first things first, this line 15 would no longer be useful. Are you with me? Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Because we are no longer saving just one fruit, right? We are saving multiple fruits that we are adding to this array of fruits that we currently have, right? So I will just go delete this guy. And if you remember very well from your JavaScript class, they taught you several array methods, methods to add elements to your array, methods to remove elements from your array, right? Either you add it to the end of your array or to the beginning of your array. So what that basically means is that if I come here and say fruits, right, dot push, right, the push method allows you add an element or a value to the end of your array, right? So what that would mean is that I would say fruits.push fruits, right? Because I am getting fruits from this input, I am setting it to this fruit state, And once I click on add to list, I want to push that fruit value to the end of this array, right? And if I save here, and I come here and add a single fruit of blackberry, and I save to list, I'm going to get, let me reload this guy. I say blackberry, save to list. Why do you think is not working? Can you tell me why?
I want to study code.
So basically, to answer your question, basically, it is because we are trying to access this value of fruits before it is even being initialized to this, right? This is where we are declaring and initializing this variable. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
And then we are trying to access this fruits dot push before we declare. So JavaScript does not know what it is that we are talking about. Are you? If I come here, save this guy, and I try to say berry, and I save to list, still not working. Why is it not working? That's a list. So first things first, let me see if the function itself is properly attached to so it works. All right. So for some reason, we are running into this problem that says that that is described as we cannot directly interact with this fruits variable, right? But now, if I come here and say I want to set this variable to a state, right? I say fruits, right? Set fruits, right? And I say use states, and I carry this guy as
default
value. And I save it. You would see that I'm still getting the same answer.
Yeah.
Still getting the same value like this.
So
now, with a state is a little bit different because now we were not completely talking about, we are not just pushing into this, we cannot just push this value into the state, because with a state, you cannot directly modify an instance of a state. What that means is that, let's assume fruit, let's use fruit as an example. As I'm typing in quadri, right? As I'm typing in quadri, what is happening? I'm setting fruits to e.targets.value. Are you with me?
Yes.
Let me clear this. Let me console.log. As I'm typing quadri, you can see that the first instance of the state was Q. The second instance of the fruit state was QU. Are you with me? The third
Yes,
instance
sir.
of the state was QUA.
Mm-hmm.
It's not coming to directly modify this first instance as QU. It's just replacing that instance with what the new value is.
Yeah.
So I cannot what that means is I cannot directly modify this instance of fruits, but I can set it to a new instance, right? I can declare a value like this, that, okay, const new fruits array equals, what's it called? Equals fruits, right? Let's say equals fruits. And I say new fruits array dot push, what am I pushing? I'm pushing in fruits, right? And once I push in fruits, I can now say set fruits to new fruits array. Let's see whether this will give us the behavior that we are looking for, right? So if I come here and say, avocado, right? And I say save to list, do I get anything in my?
No.
No, I do not. This is fruits. Set fruits. No, I do not. Okay. Let's see what is being logged to the console after we have new fruits array. As you can see, we have this in our console. So why was it not setting before? You know what it means to spread an array? Were you taught in your JavaScript class?
No, I didn't really cover much.
Okay. So what it means to spread an array is that you can say, let me comment this out first. Let's say const array equals 1, 2, right? And const array 2 equals 3, 4, right? Let's say I'm trying to join these two arrays together. There are several ways for me to do that. I can say array dot push array2, right? There are several ways for me to do this. And if I console.log CLG array if I console log this, I have array 1 and array 2. Like I have, this is array 1 here, and the array 2 is as DOS. You'd see it as 3 and 4, but it is another array inside my array 1, right?
Okay. Yes.
You're there, right? So
Yes, sir.
if I come here and say, fine, that is what is happening. Let me decide to let me decide to use another method to add this array. I can decide to use array.concat, right? Array.concat array 2, right? This is basically adding 2 arrays together. And if I save this and I reload, what do I have? 1 and 2. Why is that so? Line 20. Why is it not procrastinating? Well, because this returns a value. Let's say I save this and say array.concat, I get 1, 2, 3, 4. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
Good. So now, if I come here and say, okay, fine, I don't want to use array.concat, why not I just use, I can decide to give them a third array that says array 3 equals array 1 and array 2, right? And I can also log array 3, right? I get this as my final array, meaning both array 1 and array 2 are together as a singular array, right?
Yeah.
But you would notice that now what I'm getting is an array of arrays.
Yeah.
Do you understand what that means? I'm getting an array that has 2 arrays inside them. The first array is array 1 and 2, and the second array is array 3 and 4, right?
Yes.
So what it means to spread an array is that I would use spread operator, which is basically 3 dots. I'll add it to the front of my variable of array and say dots, dots, dots. So what this will do is simple as it's basically stretches out the array, spreads the array across, and highlights each of its value as a level 1, as a primary value to this parent array, right? And if I decide to say dot 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 array 2, the same thing happens. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 as what's it called? As an array. So this is what it means as a complete array. So I no longer have an array of arrays. I only have I now have an array of numbers, right? So it has been simplified to this. So now that is what it means to spread an array. So now let's take this concept and take it to this guy, right? And I say add fruits to list, right? And in this guy, if fruit is this, I want to set fruits. I want to set fruits to open up this guy, spread fruits, right? I want to spread fruits, then add fruit. Okay, I think I know what's happening now. This will most probably still not work, but let's say we have quadri. So we have avocado. Right? And I save to still doesn't work. Because I've not added to list yet. I've not called the function to add to list. I've not called the function to add to list. So
Okay.
let me reload this guy and say avocado, right?
Mm.
And I save to list. You see, now we add.
Yes. Yeah.
Now we add to the list. Are we together?
Yes, sir.
So this being said, um, we can now, what's it called? We can now comfortably say, okay, fine. I want to add more than avocado. I want to add another type of fruit. What type of fruits do we have again? Let's say
Orange.
orange, right? I want to add orange. I save to list. Orange is added to the list. It doesn't just replace it anymore.
Yes.
Over there. So now, knowing all of this, it means that I can now add multiple values to my value of orange with what I currently know. I know how to set states. I know how to use the unchanged events to get my value from this input. I know how to what's it called? Use the onClick event to make sure that when I click on save to list, it what's it called? It adds to the items on this list.
Yes.
So, and basically all I've used, and then in the process of that, we learned how to use some array methods like for each and then mapping, right?
Yes, sir.
So now we've done that. So one thing I would now want us to do is I would want us to build like a filter, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want us to filter through. I want us to have another button to filter this array, this list. So let's say I have this button here. Let me add another button that says filter, right?
Yes.
Obviously, I comment this guy out because the button to filter should not be the same button that would call the add to list function, right? So now I have two buttons, meaning what I want to do now is I want to search through this list of
Added fruits.
fruits that we have, this list of added fruits that we have. I want to as I'm typing here, right? As I'm typing here, or let me give you a new input to filter. That's this guy. Where's my input button? Right. So now I have two, what's it called? I have two inputs. One for what's it called? One for adding the fruits, while the other one for filtering through this list of added fruits. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
So I can now decide to say, let me create another state for filtered fruits, right? Or let me call it fruits to filter, right? Set fruits to filter. And then it is going to be a string. So the default value is a string. And having this in mind, I can come here and say, okay, let's see how best we can manage this situation. right? So I'll come here and say, I'm going to set fruits to filter, right, to e.target.value. Do you agree with me? Because what I'm doing now is that whenever I type into this input, I want fruits to filter to be saved as a variable on this state. Are you there?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Now, that's exactly what I have done on line 47. Set fruits to filter to e.target.value. And once I have that in place, I can now decide to write my filter function and say const filter equals this, right? So now to filter, the same way we have the high order array methods of for each and map. Are you with me? We have the array method of filter, which allows us to filter through an array. Are you with me? So we can say,
Yes, sir.
write that is, you can say const filtered array, because unlike your for each, right, the filter function actually returns a value to you. It returns to you an array of items that match whatever condition you have set, right? So this is how the filter works. You set a condition, you give your filter a condition that, okay, fine, I want you to give me back all the items that starts with O, or that starts with I want you to give me all
Letter.
that starts with or the items that match whatever I type into this this particular button. Or what that would mean is that, let's say I type in orange in my filter input. I want you to give me all the input, all the fruits that, sorry, give me a minute, this is distracting me. Let's say I type in orange, for example. I want you to give me the list of all the fruits that match orange. That's basically what filter does. So this is how you would write it. This is how you would write it. You would write it as does say what array am I mapping through? Am I filtering through? The fruits array. Do you remember?
Yes, sir.
Fruits.filter, right, equals, is a method on its own, which means it takes in a callback function. Right, it takes in a callback function as does. And as we all know, if you're using a callback function in a high order array method, it can take in up to 3 possible parameters. So we can say elements, or in this case, I would name it fruits, because I can name it whatever it is I want to name it, right? I would name it fruits, and I would then give it a condition that says if fruits here equals to fruits, this fruit being, okay, let me name this something else, because this fruit is supposed to be this fruit here. So let me name this something else so we don't have conflict. So let me say if fruits equals, so now I'm directly targeting this fruit up here. Oh, sorry, my bad. There's no need to do all of that, because we are not using this fruit as a checker. We are using fruits to filter. Are you with me? Because we can say if fruit equals to fruits to filter, then I want to return fruits. So what this basically means is that once I type in something in my filter input, right?
Yes.
I type it in, I click on filter. What that does is Immediately I click on filter, it takes in this filtered fruit to filter variable that I've set. It puts it into this variable here and says, so what will happen is that my fruit.filter will iterate over every single item in my current fruit array. So it will check my current fruit array to see which one of them is equal to what I have typed into my input. And then it will give me back that that particular fruit, right? So all I have to do now is, once I've gotten the value from filtered array, all I have to do now is set fruits, because fruit is what I am actually rendering, to filtered array, right? And then I'll come here and I'll call filter in my what's it called, in my onClick event, right? So if I come here and say, okay, fine, I have orange, save to list, I have avocado, I can save to list. Now if I come here and say find orange and I filter, it gives me just what? Orange.
Orange.
Are we there?
Yes, sir.
Good. So that's what it means to, you know, that's how powerful you can use, how powerful these array methods can be, because you'll be using them on a regular basis. And that's how powerful these array methods can be, and you'd be using them on a regular basis. So try as much as possible to learn and master array methods and the other array methods, because they come in very, very handy, right? So the same concepts that, you know, you'd use to handle on change is the same concepts that you used to handle on click, on mouse over, on blur, whatever other event, right? You just have to go back to it and try as much as possible to try new things with it. So I would want us to, there's a simple task I would want us to complete together by, let's say, towards our long break, right? But before we move into that, you would notice that, or you would realize that our CSS, right? We are just typing HTML into this React app. It's not fine.
Yes.
It's not looking pretty, right? So there should be a way for us to add CSS to React, right? So now let's go back. Let's go and look at, that is what we are going to be looking at next, how to add styling to our React app, right? So, let me see. All right, so there are several ways by which you can style in a React app. The first one is obviously using what's it called? You can use styled components, right? You can use styled components to give me a minute. Can use styled components to style your React project, right? But before I even move to styled components, you are very much familiar with your CSS style sheets, right?
Yes, sir.
So in our app.js, you would realize we have something here called app.css, right? And let's say you don't even, that means we have this app.css here. Are you with me? If you look at your index.js, you would see that you have index.css imported already, right?
Sir.
Can you?
Hello, sir.
I'm listening.
Yes. Can you please just tell me the difference between all these components, the index.js app.js, and
Okay, so
which one is more powerful? Which one is the component that imports the other component?
okay, so as you can see, right, your index.js is your root application file. Are you with me?
Okay. All right.
Is your root file. Like this is where everything is starting from.
Okay.
Are you with me? So you see that you import app from app.js. You are importing your app.js into this as a component into this file.
Okay.
Are you with me? So now,
Okay.
if you look at app.js,
Mm.
usually you would not tamper with what is in here, right?
Mm.
You will just leave it as does. You go to your app.js now. This is where you can now kind of create the magic, create whatever it is that you want to have in your application, right? Right. This is where you would create, because if you want to start creating from here, it can get a little bit messy, right? It means that you are writing everything in your root file, and that defeats the purpose of React. React is meant to be a component-based structure that allows you use and reuse a component multiple times, right? Do you get what I'm saying? So
Yes, sir.
so basically, index.js is the root file, the parent file for your app, for your React application, right? App.js is just another component. Do you get me? App.js and dummy.jsx, there's no much difference between them. Do you get me? It's just that if I decide to say, if I rename this guy to .jsx, right, and I save, do you get, there's no difference between dummy.jsx and app.jsx. But you see, index.js, that's your root file. Is the most
Okay.
is the uppermost layer of your file. So you can import various other files into your root file.
Okay.
So we'll get into it in a bit. How you can create
Sir.
routes, in your app.js file, meaning how you can create home page, about page, this one page, that one page. Do you get what I'm saying? In
Yes, sir.
your React application. So moving forward, we were talking about CSS, right? You have index.css and then you have app.css, right? If you go to app.jsx, you would realize app.css is imported directly into it, right? So you can either go this route where for each component you create, right? For each component you create a CSS file for that component. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So let's say I've created dummy.jsx now, right? And I want to style dummy.js. I can decide to create a new file on here and say, I want this file to be dummy.css. All I have to do now is import, what's it called? Import slash, what am I? What's no? Index.css. Oh, my bad, not here. This is not where I import. In my dummy.jsx, all I have to do is import / oh, my bad, this is supposed to be in my SRC folder. Is my dummy.css here? So are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So basically, all you have to do is import your dummy.css into your component. You can go that route, right? Or you would see that, or you can just write all your CSS, which is usually not the best way to go, because you would need it can get confusing, right? You would see that at the end of the day, all your all your several other components would be imported into which file? Your index.js, right? From what I said earlier, all your other components would be imported into your index.jsx file.
Yes.
And you can already see that index.css is being imported into this file, meaning that you can go ahead and say you want to style, let's say from my app.jsx now, which I gave one button, I gave one input class name. I said name input, right? So I can come to index.css and style my name input as thus. You can say background. I want it to have a red background, right? And I save this guy. Let me see if I spelled up the name input properly. Is capital letter N. And I say, and I come to my what's it called, my app.react. I will say that this has been implemented, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I come here and say, okay, fine, I don't want it to be here. I want it to be in. Note that it has changed back because I've removed it from I've saved it and removed it from index.jsx. I come here and say I want it to be here instead, right? Name input. I come here, you'd see I have the same thing, right? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So what will happen if I have name input styled here, and in my index.css, I also have name input styled here, and I say, and they have conflicting styling. What do you think would happen on my React app?
The one inside index.js will be implemented.
No, it is the one that I'm importing into that particular component that would take precedence, which is what from app.css, right? Because I said name input in app.css should be what? Should be red. The background should be red. But in index.css, the background should be yellow. But because I am directly importing app.css into app.jsx, whatever style I put in my app.css will take precedence over whatever is in index.jsx. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So that being said, that's the first way by which you can style your React application, by using class names and styling them in their respective style sheets, right? The other way by which you can do that is to use styled components, right? Which basically means you import something called import styled from, where's my, from styled components. Right, ball. Oof. Terminal, new terminal, npm install styled components. First things first, you install styled component, which is a package on its own. Install it into your React application. Once you've done that, you can now import styled from styled components, right? How to get that? So now that
Yes,
we've
sir.
done that, first thing you want to do is whenever you install a new package, you want to stop your server and start it again.
Okay.
So, now that we have this, we can say, what's it called? How do we even do this? You say const, right? Const style.
Yes.
So you make it a variable, right? Equals styled dots, right? Button. So you see, as you press styled, right, which is this this package imported into your file, and input this dot, you can see the several various tags, HTML tags that you can create. So what you're basically doing is that you're creating a personal component, right? A personal styled component for your React in this application, in this page. So you say style.button, right? And then use backticks. You know what backticks are?
No.
So instead, backticks are like quotes that are inverted. You know, you have your regular, what's it called? You have your regular string like this, your regular string quotes like this.
Yes, yes.
And then you have another regular string quotes like this, which can either be double quotes or single quotes.
Okay, okay.
Backticks is usually beside your one keyboard, right? And it looks like this, right? It's like inverted
Okay, I've seen it.
this thing. So what it allows you to is it gives you the ability to write template strings, right? It gives you the ability to write template strings. And I want to believe, okay, that the fact that you don't know about template strings or backtick shows that you missed it when they were doing the JavaScript class, but basically allows you add the core functionality of backticks is that it helps you write strings, and it helps you to add values or add variables to your strings, right? We would get into that eventually as we work, but for now, let's see how we can use styled components to create this our customized button, for example. So what I would do now is I can now start using my regular CSS syntax that I know. I can say background. I want my background to be what color? I want it to be ash CCC. I want it to be ash CCC 70, maybe. Then I put my my semicolon, and then I want to have a padding, right? I want to have a padding of what? Of 10 pixels, 15 pixels, right? I want to have a border radius of 8 pixels, right? Let's leave it at that, right? So where I have my buttons, right? Where I have my buttons, I can now replace them with my styled buttons. Are you with me? You can see that what I've basically done is I've created a customized button component, a customized button tag for these buttons to save to list and buttons to filter. And if I save this guy and come here, you would see that and I reload, you see that my button has taken effect.
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yes, I am.
So I can come here and decide to say let me create a new styled component and say const container, right?
Mm.
And say styles.div. I want this to be a div, right?
Mm.
Border radius this. I can now say display
Yeah.
display flex, right?
Okay.
Display flex, flex direction, row, flex direction row. Let me remove the background as this. The padding should still be the same. Let me say gap 1.5 rem, right? Align items, right? I want it center, right? So it basically means that you're creating your own personal components in so I can say I can put this in a container, right? I'll come here and say, so if I save this guy, you would see that it has taken effect. I can come to my, what's it called, my button, this thing now, and say I want to remove the border and say border, what's it called? I'll say none. If I save it, now I have this. I can say cursor pointer, right?
Mm.
And if I come here, you can see that it has
Yeah.
changed, right? That is basically how you can use styled components. Do you understand? Do you understand how to do that?
Yes, sir.
Good. So another way by which we can style our React application, right, is or style our React components is using, what's it called? Is using frameworks, right? Is using CSS frameworks, right? You are very familiar with using you must have heard something like Bootstrap, Tailwind from when you were learning HTML and CSS.
Yes, but I don't know it.
That's
I
fine.
used to hear Bootstrap.
That's fine. Bootstrap and Tailwind are basically CSS frameworks that help you with styling, right? So depending on how you want to go about your application, right? You can rely on, or you can rest on the abilities of this said components. You get me? This
Yes.
frameworks, right? So usually I use Tailwind for most of my development, because it is fast for me. I feel like it is faster for me, and I'm very much used to it, right? But if you're looking for something that is a lot more flexible, that allows you, write your CSS the way you would, like the way you normally write your CSS, or the way you normally, it gives you a lot of flexibility and customization over what you want to do, right? Say you use these other methods that I've talked about, right? The regular style.css method, and where you, your style sheet, your CSS style sheet, or you use styled components to get what it is that you're looking for, right? But let's look at Tailwind for a minute, and let's see how their documentation looks like, right? So in order to use Tailwind in your project, right, which is what we are going to be using for some of our classwork, right? So if you're together with me, I would advise you follow me step by step. But when you are watching this video later on, you can do that, right? So
Yes.
we have the different ways of starting out with Tailwind, right? So
Yes.
the simplest and fastest way is to get up and running with Tailwind CSS from scratch is with the Tailwind CLI tool, right? The CLI is also available as a standalone executable if you want to use it without installing Node.js, right? So what you do is you install Tailwind CSS via npm, create your Tailwind.js file, right? So basically what you would do is, we are going to be following this step by step, right? So what you would do is we open up our terminal, right?
Yes.
Open up our terminal and let's go to this guy, right? npm install -d Tailwind CSS npx Tailwind init, right? So first things first, let me run this commands one by one. So first thing, I'm installing my Tailwind CSS, right?
Yes.
So I believe it has installed. The next thing I want to do is run the second command, which is npx Tailwind CSS init, right? Press enter. It creates a tailwind.config.js file for me. Now that I've done that, I want to add the paths to all of my templates files in your tailwind.config file. So basically, all that means is I come here and I copy this guy, right? I copy this guy and I come to my tailwind.config CS and I paste him right here. So what this means is that it's going to take anything that is either an HTML or a JS file, or let me say /JSX, right? That in between our SRC folder. Are you there? That's what this content means. That basically it takes everything within this
component.
Exactly, within this component, exactly. So we've done that now. It now says you add Tailwind directives to your CSS, meaning you add the Tailwind directories to your index.css. So you can come here and then you come to your index.css. Where is our index? Right here. And you put it at the beginning of your CSS file, right? You save this right here. And you start Tailwind CLI build process by npx CSS-i. And basically all that means is that, oh, let me see. Let's React. Basically we're still doing the same thing. So I guess we are done, right? So what I didn't do was, I was using the CLI, what's it called, the CLI method when we are meant to use the framework guides. And if you look at it, it's still basically the same thing, because if I come to the framework guides and I go to create React app, right?
Yes.
I can see that first thing I want to do is I want to create my app. I want to go to my projects. Then after I've done that, directed to my project, I want to install Tailwind CSS, which was the first thing we did, right?
Yes.
I want to run this second command to initialize the Tailwind config, which was what we did, right? And then we have this guy that says module.export. We copy this guy, right? And then we came to paste it here.
Yes.
That is when we added GSX to our syntax, right? So we have SRC, this yada yada yada, and all of that. And then we come to index.css. We have the Tailwind base, the Tailwind components, Tailwind utilities, which is what we have added to our index.css right here, right? And after this, the most natural thing to do is npm run start, because we are done with the implementation now, right? We are done with installing Tailwind. And once I told you earlier that once you install a new package in your project, you first stop the server and then you start it again. Are you there?
Yes, sir. You said so.
So I come back here now to my React app and I reload. Obviously, you can see things have changed a little bit better. Things have changed a little bit. So now, the next thing for me to do is just go to my app.jsx, right? Let me try to see whether I can now start using my CSS, my Tailwind CSS styling, right? I will not go into the more you try to use Tailwind CSS, the better you would understand it. So just follow along as I'm using it. So I can say text SM, right, which gives me a smaller text, font semi-bold, right? And let's see what happens when we copy this guy, Command C, and paste it here also. And then we have this. Then we can say text left here, text left, right? What does this mean? Okay. I can say width full. Width full. Rather strange. All right, so with these guys now, you can come here and if I don't want to use styled components, I can leave it like this. If I want to use styled components, I can leave it like this. There's no big of a deal, right? So let me reduce these guys by let me still use the same. So let me give them a text of font size of 16 pixels, or let me say 1 rem, right? And then same thing. Let me save these guys, and it's back to normal. So you can see that you can mix a couple of non-clashing styling tools together, right? I can say this one's to be text normal, font bold, right? This, okay, fine. Text normal is too big. You can say text SM, no, text 10 pixels. If I want to give it a straight value, I can write it like this. I can just say text SM and I have it like this, right? So,
Okay.
and if you look at how do you know what to use and when to use it, you can come to your, what's it called? Layout. You can come to your Tailwind documentation, right? As you scroll down this sidebar, you can see different styling tools or whatever. So if I come here and say fonts, if I click on font size, I can see extra small to be 0.75 rem. So you see, these are the different text sizes I can use from my Tailwind CSS, right? I can use font smoothing. There are so many other things that you can use: font styling, font weights, different things that you can do, letter spacing, line clap. So basically, anything you can think of doing with CSS, right? You can most definitely do it with Tailwind. You just need to know how to use Tailwind to do it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
this documentation is going to be throughout my early days of learning how to use Tailwind. I always have Tailwind open whenever I'm developing. So I have to go back and look at what Tailwind representation am I going to use in my styling code. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So I can decide to style my inputs also, right? I can say I don't want it to be name input anymore. I want you to have a padding of P2. I want it to rounded LG border none, right?
Which one is rounded, LG?
So it gives it a rounded border like this. Do you see? So I can copy this same thing from here.
Okay.
Come and see, copy the same thing for this particular input here. So it is no longer name input. And I save this here. You will see that I have these guys like this already. So
yes.
I can go further ahead and, okay, let's see how I want to make my application look more sensible, right? I want to style this and say, I want this to be flex, item, center, gap 3 or gap 4, and I want to put these guys in one div, right? Which is my label and my inputs. My label inputs, puts them in one div, right? The same thing goes for, I have another div as does, put my label and my other inputs inside that div, right? So this is what I have next, fruit filter, right? So I now have an application that helps me to list my fruits and an application that helps me to filter through that particular list. I don't know what I'm saying. So I can go ahead and say, this li, let me style it in a particular way and say, okay, I want it to have a padding of 2 as well, P2, BG white, text black, obviously, rounded LG, width full, let's see what happens when we save this. You can say my2, right? We give this UL a class name of width full, so you can take the entire width of its parent component, which is this, but we don't want it to be width full. We can say width 50%, right? And it becomes this. So you can see our application looks a lot more better now that we've added styling to it.
Yes.
It's no longer abstract as we are looking at it. right? So now
Yes.
you can now come here and say, okay, what else do you think I can do? Instead of making this guy's list directly, you would realize that if I add another one, if I add another guy that says, oh, what's my input styling? You can say text black, for example. Same thing here, say text black, right? And I say avocado, save to list. It gets added to my list, right?
Yes.
Let's say, for example, now I do not know, like, because if I keep adding to this list, you see that it is going to push my application like this. I don't want that to happen. If I come here and filter, what's it called, avocado, it's going to give me just the guys that have avocado in there, right?
Yes.
If I reload, it takes everything away because my list had already become a list of avocados, right? If I come here and say avocado, and I filter, I'm not going to get anything because I don't have avocado in my list, right? So I can reload and get back to my original.
Sir,
I'm listening.
all these things that are added will not be visible to the users, Abi.
Will not be visible to the users.
Yes.
Because you filtered, you try to
Like
find a fruit that is not inside, that was not inside this guy. I was not inside this list of fruits. So when you click on filter, it basically says because of the logic that we are implementing here in our filter function, we are basically setting the list of fruits, right, to what we get from this filtered array. And if you what's it called? If you what's it called? Sorry, what was I saying? I said if you what we are doing in our code is that we are filtering through this our list of fruits, which is coming from here, this fruits array. Right? We are filtering through it to see whether this item or this avocado that we have typed in here is equal to a particular element in this fruit array. If that element is there, I want to return it. It means that I am now setting whatever value I'm getting from this fruits.filter to this filtered array. Are you with me? Yes. So that filtered array is what I'm now setting to be the new list of fruits. But in the situation where this fruits.filter is giving you an empty array, because right now, if I reload this page, obviously avocado is not here, right? And if that means if I try to find avocado, it will return, this function would return an empty array. It will return an empty array, and that empty array is what you are setting to fruits. Are you with me? Yes. That empty array is what you are setting to fruit, and in turn, that is what we are now rendering, which would now be nothing, because there is nothing in the array anymore. Yes. Are you with me? So that would mean that you need to find a way to make sure that even when the item is not in the, even when this avocado item is not in the array, it doesn't clear off your entire list.
Okay.
That would be my assignment that would be my first assignment to you guys. You and everyone that decides to join my class the next time. That would be my first assignment to you. Right?
Okay. Okay.
So that's the first thing. So we reload. You can see that we now have this. Guys. Do you have any question on on anything we've discussed so far? Because I would like us to move to routes.
I actually understand how you did everything, but still I will still have to go through it like 2 times, like when I'm watching the video, so I'll be able to grab it perfectly.
Okay. That's okay. That's fine. So the next thing I would like us to look into is routing. Right?
Okay.
So this is where things start to make sense a lot more. Right. So let's say we go back to this guy. So if you look at this, look at this event state management, you see that state in React allows components to manage their own data. The use state hook is a fundamental part of functional components. For example, this is basically, you have const count, set count on, const count. So on each button, you have a on-click event that sets counts to count +1. That's for the add. And then the other one sets counts to counts -1. Right. So that's basically use state at its primary level. So let's go to routes. You say, what exactly are routes? In plain understanding, routes are basically individual pages on your application. They help with the arrangement and coordination of your application as a whole. Let's look at some few examples, right? So if I my dot how do you it's command enter. Oh, all right. So you would come to your, what's it called? You would come to your strange header. So let's come to your, what's it called? Your index.js, right? You know, I told you that this is where you're going to be, importing a lot of other components or pages in your application, right?
Yes.
The first one being your main app, right? That can be your home page, or you can either have that app, like you can either have your, what's it called, your index.js like this, right, and not touch it at all, or you can come to your app.js and say, okay, fine, let me comment out all of these things that I've written here, right? So that we have a lot more space. Have a lot more space in our application, right? Let me Open a fragment here, and oh, sorry. First thing I want to do is I want to import. I'd like to import route. Give me a minute. Folder. So as you're saying, import, what's it called? Import browser router. First of all, do we have React router imported installed into our package.json? So that's the first thing you look at. Do we have React router DOM? No, we do not. So the first thing we actually want to do is we go to our terminal, a new terminal, and then we want to npm install React router DOM. Once we install it, you'll see that it will impute itself in this
Yes, I got it.
where is it on line 11? Good.
Yeah.
So once you have that, next thing you want to do is come to your app.js, say import browser router as router, right? From React router DOM. Then you import routes, right? Am I on the right part? Routes and routes. All right. So once you have that in place from React router DOM, the first thing is you want to wrap your entire everything you are going to be putting in different routes, right? All the what's it called? Every single page you want to have a what's it called? A router, right? You want to wrap it in your router provider, right? And once you have your router provider, the next thing you want to do is create what's it called? Use your routes, right? Once you have your routes, the next thing is you have your route, right? So this can be a self-closing tag, right? This particular guy would now take in the path and the elements that this particular route will be speaking to. So that means I can say path. Let's say I'm trying to say I want my I want to have an home page. So I can say I want my home page to be /dummy.gsx. Are you with me?
Yes.
So I just say /dummy. That's what I want my path to be, and then I want my element to be what's it called? I want my elements to be let me export out my elements first. So I'll say function dummy page. Right. Return this is the home page. Okay, then export default every page. Right. Save this guy. X. Save this guy. I can say, come here and say dummy page. Right. So I've successfully created a new path in my my application, right? So everything I had before, let me go back and try to copy it. Let me see if I can go back and copy it. Let me try to copy this guy. Come and see. And say I paste it here. Right. And then I take this one back to where I was coming from. Right. And then I copy all of this that I've commented. Copy it from here. X. And I decide to paste it here. Let me uncomment it out now, because now I actually need it here. Right. So I save this. And then I save this. So if I go to, what's it called? My React application. I go to my React app. It says use state is not defined. All of this is not defined, which is basically meaning that I need to carry all of this guy, Command C, and paste it here. Right. And I have the same thing as stores. So if I come here and say, and I reload, and I say slash dummy, I get this page. Are we there?
Okay.
Because this is now a route on my React app. Right.
Okay.
So I can decide to create another page like this. So I can say this is let's assume this is my own page. Let me create a button that goes to what's it called, my about page, for example. Right. This is my application that this is an application that helps you list fruits and filter through fruits. Are we there? Then I now have a button down here. Right. That's under my UL. That's going to be my styled button, right? I can say
Yes.
go to where? About, right? I have this down here. But the problem is I need to route it, because if I click on this now, nothing is going to happen, right? So I can come up here. I'm going to import something called import link from React Router DOM, right? So what that would mean is that I'll turn this my button to a link,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
And then I'll push my button inside, right? As does.
Yeah.
And this link will take in same thing as what's it called? Can take in href. Takes in href like you would normally expect your regular links to take in.
Hmm.
And give me a minute. Search out. Oh, okay. So instead of the href, give me a minute. Instead of the href, it
Yes,
takes
sir.
the two attributes, right? So link to where it now passing the path of, let's say, about, right? But if I come here now and I go to my about page, if I click on this, I go to /about, and you see that it's just an empty page because I have not created anything that is relating to /about. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So if I come down here and what's the time? This is 12. If I come down here and I create a new, I'll have to create a new file called about.gsx, right? Once I have this file, I can obviously create my new component. I can create it as does export. This is another way for me to create component. Export default function. Export default function about. Right. So this helps me create it in one fell sweep. Return. Right. I return a simple JSX that says this, or rather, let me put this in a p tag. H1 tag. This is my about page, right? So I save this guy, and then I come to my app.gsx and I create a new route for what? For my about page. So it's going to be about /about, and then I'll have to, what element am I using to represent my about page? Is going to be my about component, right? I save this guy and I automatically get this in my console. So in my what's it called, on my page. So I can say class name text 3XL. I can font bold. Right. So this is basically how you do that. So you can now start seeing how you can make sense of everything that we've been learning so far. You can see yourself creating a landing page, an about page. You can see yourself creating several other pages too that does different functionalities, right? So I'll leave you to go on a break now, and we'll reconvene here by 12:30. Right, we'll reconvene here by 12:30, and after your break, we are going to be looking at building our actual first application.
Wow. But sadly, my system is very, very low. I've been managing I pray they bring Lisa.
Okay, okay. So
And I've been the only one in the class. That's sad.
okay, so let's see let's see what happens. What's your battery percent now?
12.
12. All right, let's hold the class here for a minute. Let's hold the class here for a bit.
Okay.
Let's hold the class here for a bit. Maybe sometime during the week. Sometime during the week we can reconvene. Or
All right, sir.
I'll talk to Mr. Abbas and see what we can do.
Okay, sir. Sir, I don't know your name on the group.
On the
Like
group?
I want to yeah, should be on the group, Abby?
On the group, just search for Quadri. You should be you should
Okay.
see me. Or ask Mr. Abbas to direct you to my contact.
All right, sir.
Thank
All right,
you.
sir. Thank you so much for everything. God bless you.
You're welcome. Thank you too.
Yes, sir.
Wait, were you seeing my screen since?
Yes. It's still showing your okay now. This just showing your name.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, that's fine.